It is my pleasure to now introduce our speaker for today, Maureen Muldoon. Maureen is an international speaker, writer, storyteller, and songbird who believes in the miraculous power of storytelling for healing and transformation. As the founder and spiritual director here at Speakeasy, she helps people tell their truth so they can expand their reach, leave their mark, and honor their lives. Learn more about her offerings at maureenmuldoon.com. I now pass it to Maureen for our talk on open-mindedness.
Thanks, Sherry. Thank you, everybody. Gosh, I was saying earlier that it has been such a great ride to go through Camp Sunshine together and cover all of the characteristics of a good teacher of God. I always say good teacher of God. That's not in the course. It's just a teacher of God. I think it's just assumed that we're good. Because if you're teaching God, you're teaching love. If you're teaching love, you're extending love. Really, you're not teaching anything. And in the Course in Miracles, really, it tells us that we're just unlearning. We're letting go of all the blocks to love. So that's just what that's what we'll continue to do, specifically with open-mindedness. We've covered the characteristics of trust, of honesty, of tolerance, of joy, gentleness, defenselessness, generosity, patience, faithfulness, and now open-mindedness. And why do we end with open-mindedness? Or perhaps why do we begin with open-mindedness? Because in the Course, it tells us this is as far as we can get you, but this is not the end. So the Course, it says in open-mindedness, it says the centrality of open-mindedness is easily understood when its relationship to forgiveness is recognized. So centrality, it's central to the idea of forgiveness. Centrality meaning it's a quality of being essential, of great importance to this concept of forgiveness. So open-mindedness is essential to the role that we're here to play, which is to forgive. For open-mindedness comes with a lack of judgment. And I would even go so far to say that open-mindedness is enlightenment, because you're not in your right mind and you're not in your wrong mind. You're in the open mind of God. And of course, this requires that we relinquish judgment, that the relinquishment of judgment is the cost of experiencing this paradise, where you move from thinking, or we move from thinking that we know to actually knowing. Thinking that you know and actual gnosis are two different states. Thinking is the thing that gets in the way of gnosis, because you're thinking about what you think you know. So the lesson that we covered today in our morning call, Miracles Live 365, we get so much good stuff in the morning. And if you're not on those calls, like, what are you waiting for? It's $1 a day. It's fresh baked bread every single day. And you get to wake up with other members of your community, like Chris, like Bella, like Sherry, like Lisa, like Rich. I mean, you get to, with Dove, you get to wake up with people that you really want to wake up with, as opposed to all those times that you woke up with people you were like, oh, this was a big mistake. Maybe that was just me. But the thing about this talk, what I realized when I got to the end of it, was that this talk gives a scientific backing that supports joining with others in positive content. So if you're still a skeptic, listen up. And don't get me wrong, I'm a skeptic. I question everything. So anyway, this morning on the morning calls, 224 was the lesson. And it says, God is my Father, he loves his Son. And what we came up with was that if you knew this, like if you truly knew this, we would never need to move into the action of protection through the use of thought. Your thoughts are defenses that are used for protection. That's kind of a radical idea. And when you think about that, when you use the tool of thought to think about that, what are you protecting ourselves from? If we but knew that everything was God on parade, if we but knew that everyone was God in drag. And I know that these are sort of fun suggestions, but they're actually true. So lesson 224, which comes after the one that Rich just read, 222, says, my true identity is so secure, so lofty, so sinless, so glorious, and great, holy, benevolent, and free from guilt, that heaven looks to it to give it light. Your true identity is so secure, so lofty, so glorious, so sinless, so great, so holy, benevolent, and free of guilt that heaven looks to you for light. This is what the Course in Miracles says. So you already are all that you need to be. We just think that we're not. And in your judgment, you have no idea of how holy you actually are. But that doesn't change your holiness. It goes on to say, basically, it says your holiness lights up the world as well, not just heaven, but it lights up the world. It's the gift that your Father gave to you and actually gave through you to extend to the world. This light is the gift your source gives you. If you don't change your mind, in your open-mindedness, you become an extension as the ray of sun extends the light. This is the same for you. You are the sun, S-O-N, S-U-N, designed to shine. Light is synonymous with life. It's synonymous with love. You give love, you give light. You give light, you give love. They're the same. So lesson 224 says there is no gift but this that can be either given or received. So the only thing that can be given and received is this light, is this love. You're a being of frequency of light. You're a light frequency being. And I know, like, that sounds really woo-woo, but like science is catching up with it. And this can be the only gift that's either given or received. This is reality and only this. So this exchange of love and light is reality. The other play that seems to be happening, which seems to be war and, separation, that's an illusion. But what's really happening beneath that is just the exchange of love and light. Remember, that's the reality. When we say reality in the Course in Miracles, what we're talking about is a state of love. It says in the Course, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And this 224 goes on to say, this is illusion's end. So we're moving out of this addiction to illusion. And it goes on to say, it is the truth. So this is what we've been defending against. We've been defending against the truth with our judgments. Our judgments is where our minds shut. So I'm going to read the last two paragraphs of Open-Mindedness. How do the open-minded forgive? They have let go of all things that would prevent forgiveness. They have in truth abandoned the world and let it be restored to them in newness and in joy so glorious they could never have conceived of such a change. And maybe this has happened for you. Maybe you've had the experience where you forgave someone and you had the experience of living into that audacious state that the Course says the most beautiful place on earth is when an ancient hatred or unforgiveness or grievance becomes a current love. That's what's given to you. That's what's always been there. I've been the only one to block that state. It goes on to say nothing but sparks now which seems so dull and lifeless before, right? When you're in grievance, doesn't it feel like it's a pixelated black and white experience? And now it's suddenly like we're at Oz and like we step in and it's three-dimensional technicolor. It goes on to say, above all, are all things welcome, for threat is gone. Imagine yourself in this state where all things are welcomed because threat is gone. So as I said before, it's a God parade. Everyone is just God in drag. All things are welcomed. It's just Holy Communion. It's just namaste. No cloud remains to hide the face of Christ. Now is the goal achieved. Forgiveness is the final goal of this curriculum. It paves the way for what goes far beyond all learning. So basically, our part is to get to forgiveness, to undo our mind, to keep our mind open, but the buck doesn't stop there. Forgiveness is its simple aim at which all learning ultimately covers. It is indeed enough. But you may have noticed that the list of attributes of God's teachers does not include things that the Son of God, of God's inheritance. So they're saying like, we're giving you these gifts here. You're going to be responsible for healing your mind by forgiveness. And then there are additional gifts, terms like love, sinlessness, perfect knowledge, eternal truth, do not appear in this context. They would be most inappropriate here. What God has given is so far beyond our curriculum that learning but disappears in its presence. So those things like truth and love, those are not learned. those are there already. As we undo our minds, there's just more good to come. God and good are ever expanding for you. Yet while its presence is obscured through unforgiveness, the focus properly belongs on the curriculum. So as long as you're twisted and torn up, your role is just to work with forgiveness. The rest of it will come. That's not your responsibility. It is the function of God's teachers to bring true learning to the world. Properly speaking, it is unlearning that they bring, for that is true learning in the world. It is given to the teacher of God to bring the glad tidings of complete forgiveness to the world. Blessed indeed are they, for they are bringers of salvation. You could substitute the word salvation for peace. You could also substitute the word salvation for any of the characteristics of God. So, blessed are they, for they are the bringers of truth. Blessed are they, for they are the bringers of trust. Blessed are they, for they are the bringers of joy. Blessed are they, for they are the bringers of defenselessness. So, all of these things you bring with you as you allow your mind to become undone and live in this present moment without judgment. After you understand the value of open-mindedness, that non-judgmental state of being, all that's left to do is shine. Shine on all things equally and with gratitude. So what is one of the major blocks to that shining? Low self-esteem. This is something that, we hold on to and we identify with, and it can be very subconscious. We're taught very early on not to be too big for our britches, so we content ourselves with smallness, and smallness is a lie. It's the game we play when we want to play it safe. And paradoxically, it's the game we always, always, always lose. In fact, when we play small, everyone loses. And by small, I mean being fractured, not being brave enough, courageous enough to live in your full-blown truth. Littleness is like an itchy, shrunken sweater on a hot day. That's what your littleness feels like. Not just for you, for everyone. So we can build self-esteem by doing esteemable acts. Esteemable acts build self-esteem. Esteem is a feeling of respect or admiration for someone or something. Respect and admiration. Now, if you want an awesome life, you might refrain from tearing anybody else down. You need to bring to every single interaction that you have respect and admiration. I know that might sound like off where the buses don't run for some of us, but you've been around people who have approached every situation with respect and admiration. I had this coach one time, Will and I were doing this triathlon, and this guy, he was so, like every time we asked a question, he would say, good question. Every time somebody came by, he said, well, let's buck them up. Let's make them feel good. Like, I feel like I was like getting a master class on how to be a good person. And it was very helpful. When you're around someone like that, it lifts the vibe of everyone. This guy's job was to train knuckleheads like me how to do a triathlon. I mean, my after-school special, sport was smoking under the bleachers. I was not a jock. And I told him that every single day I showed up to practice. I was like, go easy on me, dude. I'm not a jock. After about 2 weeks of running and swimming and all the rest of it, he said to me, you have to stop saying that. He wanted to raise my vibe to an awareness of my potential. He wanted me to stop playing small because my playing small did not help him. Actually, it harmed him. His job was to get me past the finish line, and I was wrestling with that by playing small. So it's a no-brainer. And yet, I have people I come in contact with who tell me that they can't or they don't want to be friends with someone who doesn't co-sign their gossip, essentially saying, I want to play small. Will you play small with me? The answer is I will not. I'm not here for that. I hope you're not here for that either. And I hope that you have the courage to say, no, I want to live in the vibe that will actually help me to be helpful. Respectful acts of admiration help to bolster the state of acceptance that is required if we hope to be extensions of God's love. There's no gray area there. You can't give what you don't have. So you must build your acceptance of your holiness. You must eradicate guilt, and you must recognize what lesson 224 is giving us. Not just recognize it, but embody it. Your true identity is so secure, so lofty, sinless, glorious, and great, holy, beneficent, and free of guilt that heaven looks to you for its light. Those aren't my words. That's directly from the Course, from your brother Jesus, from God, from your source, who has the cojones to say this, Jesus. Jesus has some cojones. You never really get to hear about Jesus's cojones. But cojones means to have courage and boldness. So he has this boldness that is so bold that it spills over him onto everyone he comes in contact with. This and greater things shall you do, he says to us knuckleheads. He says, you think this is good? You're going to do greater things. That's how much this admiration flows over him. Why did Jesus say that to us? Was he playing Tom Sawyer? Was he trying to trick us into painting the fence for him? Well, yes and no, because painting the fence is fine, right? But painting the fence in the company of other holy brothers and sisters is nothing short of heaven. That's why we gather each Sunday morning. That's why we gather every day in between, because our souls know what the scientists are just now proving. A friend of mine sent me a video of this scientist. He was talking about the law of attraction. And what he was saying, or what I took from it anyhow, is that when it comes to the law of attraction, we've kind of gotten it all wrong and all right. The law of attraction, you've probably heard me say, is the law of distraction in my book. So we got the law of attraction wrong because we use it to get things. Things are fine. They're temporal. They're fun. They're not real. They're temporal, so they'll come and go. So you can manifest all the things you want, all the trips, all the experiences, all the flavors, and so on. Great. The law was not necessarily designed to create more stuff. The law of attraction was designed to amplify the consciousness of creation, to amplify the consciousness of love and light and reality. Why? Because that state that we've been talking about that's promised in lesson 224, how your identity is so secure and lofty and sinless and glorious and great and holy, benevolent and free from guilt that heaven looks to you for light, that state feels so good. And when you feel good, you do good. When you align with truth and in alignment, there is nothing that you cannot do. You might think that, maybe trips and food and experiences give you good feelings, and in some degree they do, but the real expansion comes when you connect with a brother or sister. When you have a holy communion with another, you extend the sonship. You can't really do that with a table. I mean, maybe you can get so far. This is what it looks like. It's the healed mind. It has no need, and it wants to join with others out of a mutual awareness of abundance. So, how often do you come into the room only with the intention of joining with others out of a mutual awareness of abundance? This is the state of true open-mindedness, because you've broken the habit of coming to get. You've broken the habit of coming like a junkie. You've broken the habit of coming with an agenda. The law that the scientist was talking about was called constructive interference. You can look that up. And it basically says when two waves travel in the same direction, and you and I are nothing more than energetic waves, when two waves travel in the same direction and are in phase with each other, they amplify the energy. So this law, scientifically, is as real as the law of gravity. The size of the frequency when you are with like-minded individuals doubles. So you get energy from these types of conversations. That is what is happening here. We come together in the frequency of love, and because we are in the same vibe, essentially, we amplify each other's conversations. And what we learned from What the Bleep Do We Know, 20 years ago, is that we don't even have to engage in the conversation. We just, being around positive vibes or conversations or interactions of love also amplifies our experience. Like when you see somebody in the airport kissing and you're in the vibe of acceptance of love. This morning I was sitting in this cafe and I saw this father feeding his child. Oh my God, I started crying. Like it just amplified my experience of love. So this is the science behind it. Frequencies, energy is emitting from our bodies, like radio waves. Frequency is the dictator of what we attract or repel. If two people meet and join in negative exchange, they literally deplete the wave. It's from this study, SPANE, SPAN. It's an acronym, I think, for the scale of positive and negative energy and how they measure it. And in Germany, they did this study for 2,500 people. And they had this Fades cage, I might be saying it wrong, which is this space that's void of all frequency, of radio waves, of microwaves, of all of these waves are void of it. I'm sure that Lou knows what I'm talking about because he studies this thing up and down the chart. So it's a space that is void of so they could just study what was the frequency from the human body, and they were able to measure the frequency leaving the participants' bodies, and they could isolate the frequency down to being able to tell whether the emission was jealousy or hatred or vengeance. Also, David Hawkins had this whole scale of consciousness too, which just nods to this. And he was saying that the most powerful admission to leave the human body, if you want to guess at what the most powerful admission to leave the human body is, put it in the chat. I'm going to tell you anyhow, because people were guessing at it. Thank you, Lou. Yeah, Lynn, love. Yeah, a certain form of love. The most powerful vibe to emit from our bodies is authenticity. That was the most powerful and attractive energy that can affect the energy of another. Authenticity only happens when your words are truthful and you believe in what you're saying. So what does that tell you? This is what it tells me. What it tells me is if authenticity is the most powerful energy that I can emit, then these principles of a teacher of God being used to assist me in authenticity. To be authentic, I need to trust. To be authentic, I need to be honest. I need to be tolerant, to be joyful, to be gentle, to be defenseless, to be generous, patience, faithfulness, and open-mindedness. All of these things assist me in my authenticity. So that's what it tells me. It also tells me I need to know and love myself to be authentic. I need to know and love myself. And thirdly, I actually need you to know and love yourself. And in that mutual awareness of abundance, we create heaven together. We expand heaven together. When Jesus suggested, this and greater things shall you do, he wasn't being self-depreciative. He wasn't like, I'm no good, you're going to do even better than me. He was suggesting this not because he wanted to make us better. He was suggesting this because he could not contain the truth. He came to us with the awareness of limitless abundance. He could not contain the truth because he had impeccable self-esteem. Even when we cut him down, he was like, forgive them, they would know not what they do. Like, you can't touch this. You're harming the body. That's nothing. That's not reality. All of his acts stemmed from respect and admiration for everyone. Respect and admiration for everyone and everything, even those people who you want to judge. Jesus only saw one Christ because he was one with the Christ. And his role is the same role as yours, as mine, to shine. When we choose instead to show up and shine, we're choosing against littleness. We're choosing to make manifest the glory of God. That, of course, is no small thing, but littleness has offered us nothing anyhow. And as long as we play it safe and close to the vest, we won't have peace. Peace comes not from measuring out appropriate teaspoons of life and love and light, but from the awareness of the unity in all things. A Course in Miracles tells us it is essential that you accept the fact and accept it gladly that there's no form of littleness that can content you. You are free to try as many as you wish, but all you will be doing is to delay your homecoming. For you will be content only in magnitude, which is your home. Magnitude is your home. Magnitude is your home. Magnitude comes from connecting with your source and extending that connection to everyone. You're not supposed to spend life warming the bench and playing it small. We're not designed for that. Every day the holy coach yells at you like he did at me, like, okay, come on, suit up. You got to bring this home for us, man. Every day we have the opportunity to take life on life's terms and commit to having fun. Every day we can prepare for the game and suit up for it. And as love reveals your holiness, fear makes life seem like fractured. So notice when you're in that, pointing the finger, the victim, the villain, the hero. Notice when you're there and then choose again. So I wanted to end with this, a personal experience that I had this past week, which I felt was helpful. So this friend of mine, he wrote to me and he said, why is your content geared towards women? And if you read my blog, you heard this, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper with it and then I'll close. And I invite you to share with me, how you navigate open-mindedness and when you feel your mind shutting down. So he asked me this question. And you know what? I'll tell you the truth, I was a little ruffled by it. I was like, what do you mean? Why is my stuff geared towards women? But instead, I remembered what my coach said to me, which was, great question. So I said, great question. And let me answer that by sharing some content. According to recent estimates, there are approximately 3,500,000 places of worship in the United States, just in the United States alone. These include churches and mosques, synagogues and temples, other religious facilities of various faith. The vast majority of these are Christian, Islamic, and Jewish, worshiping the masculine concept of God. Even in the book that we study, A Course in Miracles, it is the masculine pronoun that we're using. So sure, there are some Hindu temples and some neo-paganist traditions that, celebrate Durga and the goddess, along with certain indigenous and earth-centered spiritual practices that celebrate the divine feminine. But these are the exception to the rule. So what we offer at Speakeasy, no matter what gender you identify as, is kind of rare. It's rare, and it's rare by necessity because there's a deep need for spiritual content that speaks to the female, that honors the divine feminine soul. But here's the thing. Make no mistake, this content is not just for women, in the same way that all the other religions are not just for men. I'm hearing recently that if you vote for a woman, you become a woman. That's not very open-minded. Now, on a personal note, a female-centric spiritual community was not something that was available to me when I was a little kid. In fact, the first time that I saw a female minister, I almost fell off my chair. I was 40 years old. I began to see a possibility. Until that moment, I didn't see that as a possibility. If you don't see it, it's hard for you to believe in it. So when someone like my friend questions why my content is geared towards women, I think a better question might be, why is there a gaping void in spiritual teachings that address the feminine or even just include the feminine soul? And it's also, worth noting that when I wake up on Miracles Live 365 every single morning, some of the greatest powerhouses that are on that call are men. I mean, that we get to wake up to, who are not threatened when we change the pronoun every once in a while for shits and giggles. And here's the thing, I don't create. Here's the real thing. I don't create this content to fill a void. I create what I create from the filters of my personality because it makes me happy. That's why. That's the whole reason behind it. It is authentically what my soul is here to do. So to question it is to believe that something went wrong. Nothing went wrong. I'm just living in my authenticity. I'm here for anyone who shows up, who's ready for transformation. But I do care deeply for those who are, held outside of the circle for so long. I care deeply for anyone who's committed to their spiritual growth. But I do have a soft spot for the underdog. And I'm sure that one of the reasons, I look after the ladies is that there was no leadership for me in the church of my childhood. So what makes me happy is I get to be the change I want to see in the world. You get to be the change you want to see in the world. It's about providing a sanctuary where the divine feminine is honored and celebrated for all genders, not just by women. So that's why it might seem, if you've ever had this question, like, why has it got to be about women? That's the answer to that. And him questioning me actually gave me an opportunity to sit down with the Holy Spirit and ask, because the first answer that wanted to come out of my mouth wasn't that. I got to sit down with the Holy Spirit. And so I hope you have an open mind about that. And I thank you for supporting this little offering of love as I play out my part in the sonship. And I'm here to help you play out your role that only you can play from your own authenticity. How to get to that authenticity? Get still, listen, take the inspiration, and then connect with other positive and loving souls. It's one thing to hear the direction. It's a completely different thing to actually take action. I heard the direction, open a church, open a church, open a church, open a church. I did not take action for a very long time. It's hard to take action, but that's where the money meets the road, right? So try not to question. And also try not to question what brings another happiness. Keep your mind open. Trust that whatever they're doing it because it's a part of their healing and it's a part of their happiness, their soul journey. And because we're all under the one unified love of God, this must also be a part of your healing and your happiness. There must be a part of your healing and happiness that is tied into this thing that we want to question instead of just love. So that's the word.
Thank you, Maureen. As usual, you give us so much to think about. Now it's time for the truly unique experience of Speakeasy Sunday service, our community conversation. This is where we invite you to speak easily. Find your voice and your truth, share your thoughts, inspirations, awarenesses, and your questions with the community. When you feel called to share a question or a comment, just raise your virtual hand, which is located in the Reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. Please also note to leave your video on when doing so, as we want to know and see you. I'll get us started so much, but you asked the question, and I'd like everyone to, kind of chime in on the question that Maureen asked. How do you handle open-mindedness? She kind of threw that out there. So the way that I handle open-mindedness is, first I had to do away with the word fair. With using that as a measuring stick for anything. Because as a kid, you're taught sometimes, and you start to believe that things are going to be fair, and fair means one thing and unfair means another thing. Well, that is in judgment. Of course, you're not taught that as a child. But I got rid of the word and the feeling of anything being fair. And then just getting silent and becoming an observer. That's what really helped me to become open-minded, is to take the position of I'm just observing what's happening long before I jump in with my thoughts and judgments. So what are your comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a masterful embodiment of, and a really wise one. The ego will like, no, it's really not fair. So it reminds me of the time I went out to lunch with a friend of mine, and we were closing off a business together. And I've told this story before, but basically she, we had an agreement. We were just going to split it down the middle. She was going to walk with half and I was going to walk with half. But by the time the lunch was over, she had basically convinced me that all the money was hers. And I was a little bit ruffled by it. And it wasn't much money, but I was still ruffled. And I listened to the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit just said, just say, I trust you. And I was like, oh, okay, I trust you. Okay. And when I went home, I was really pissed. And I said, Holy Spirit, why did you have me say that? It didn't make any sense. I don't understand. And it said, well, who are you talking to? Like, do you trust me? If you trust the world, it's a fickle world. It's going to come and go 1,000 times. The lesson for that experience for me was not to put weight on the numbers, on the form, but to build the consciousness, which was so much more helpful, so much more helpful than trying to accrue numbers in my bank account. To have the consciousness of a limitless child of God is what that lesson taught me. And so when you say it's not fair, in God, it's always fair. It's more than fair and in your favor.
Every time.
Every time. In the world, it's not fair, but in the spiritual realm, it's more than fair. It's overflowing in your favor. Yeah.
Well, once again, I'm blown away over here, Maureen. I just love your authenticity, your vulnerability, how you bring the message home so deeply. I mean, we're all going to fall on our face. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to perhaps not sing the first song as perfectly as we had imagined, but it rolls over us, and you carry on and you look forward to the next song, and you appreciate the opportunity for showing up and being a part of something that's real. So I just want to keep the conversation going towards happy mistakes and finding that permission within self to keep discovering.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Isn't that a thing? I was on stage the other day, and I don't know why this guy asked me to get on stage with him and sing some songs. And I'm not a professional singer, really. I mean, I like to sing, but, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Got on stage with him, and he kept singing these songs I didn't even know the words to. I was standing in front of the mic like, pretending I was singing. And then somebody in the audience was like, turn Maureen's mic up. I was like, don't bother. I'm not singing. I'm pretending to sing. And after that, I mean, I finally said, when he had a break, I was like, finally, like, I'm going to sing one song and then I'm going to leave because I'm not of any help here. But I thought about that for so long afterwards, Lou. I was like, oh my gosh, what was that was terrible. I should never get on stage and like harm my inner artist and put myself so far beyond my comfort zone. But, you know, now I tell you the story and you're laughing. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what the whole experience was for, to bring greater laughter. And maybe it'll make you feel better about whatever judgment you want to place on you. You sang,
Right.
at least you sang. I didn't even sing. That was
Well,
my thing.
yes,
I was like Milli Vanilli up there.
right, right. Good. Well, good for you for trying, you know. It's great because the more I fall down, the more I know how to do it the right way the next time. You know, I think it's just necessary, or a better way the
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah, everything is grist in the oyster for a greater experience, you know, and the faster we can get past harming ourselves with these ideas, the faster you can get past it, the faster I'll get past it. Because here's the thing, Lou, no one's thinking about that as much as you are.
Of course.
No?
Yes. Yes.
Everyone else was just thinking, wow, Lou's really great. And he's the musician for today, and he's amazing, and his consciousness, and your consciousness. There's one thing you can't fake is your consciousness. So whether you're singing good or bad or not at all, your consciousness is still showing up. And that is enough. That is more than enough.
That makes my day, Maureen. Thank you kindly. Bless you. And
Yeah.
keep on jumping on stage and having a good time.
No.
Thank you.
I don't know about that, but okay. Yeah.
But Maureen,
Yeah.
I like the way that you brought self-esteem into being a major block for open-mindedness. Because for one thing, when you're in low self-esteem, you're always thinking about you, which is so, you wouldn't think that would be it, but you really are thinking about how you feel and how you think you're doing and how you're projecting and, you know,
Yeah.
everything. So you're so far from being open-minded.
Yes.
But I like the way that I wrote down open-mindedness is non-judgmental, because
Yeah.
sometimes we think we're open-minded just by listening to the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Versus not having a judgment or being judgmental in that moment. And to give it some space and let it settle in what they're saying and attempt to see it from their way, from the way that they're seeing it, or just let it go.
Yeah. Closed-minded will defend what it knows with everything it has. Open-minded is willing to learn, and then it's willing to grow. And, you know, that's not regurgitating. Judgment regurgitates. It just, I know this, I know this, I know this. I want to make sure you know it. And then we just kind of create this toxic witch hunt. But here's the thing, when we do that, and I touched on gossiping, it's okay to talk about other people behind their back if you actually say the same exact thing in front of their faces.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you're dividing yourself and you're living in a land of shadows. If you live in a land of shadows, you will never find your spotlight. You will never, ever, ever, ever. It's just mathematically incapable for you to live into that spotlight. So that's why I would invite all of us to have a no-fly zone when it comes to running other people down behind their backs, unless you're going to say it in front of their face. I say all kinds of things in front of Joni's face. And I say them behind her back, but I mostly say them in front of her face. And I know that anything I would say behind, I could say this to her face, because she and I have a great friendship and she's my teacher. You know what I mean? I think that is okay, because here's the alternative is so toxic. When I talk about low self-esteem, that is a sure sign that you have not low self-esteem, but no self-esteem, because nobody would go around the world letting shit fly out of their mouth, because that's what it is. And I know that sounds grotesque, but I'm just going to paint the picture for your reality if that is your truth. And it is an addiction. So get to a 12-step program and say, you know, I'm addicted to hearing my own voice pull other people down, and I want to break that addiction. because I want to rise up and I want to help other people rise up. That's what I'd say about that. And imagine if we had a community, you know, we do have a community, but if we really invested in that, that'd be a very nice place to be, a very fertile soil of happiness. And I notice in our community, when I look around, I notice so many friendships form. I feel like this is a place that blooms friendship, is a garden of friendships. And I just love that. I saw last night Lisa and Al hanging out together, and I was like, oh, wow, you guys have some things in common. He's like, yeah, we're both horticultures. And I was like, that's right. And I just love that. I just couldn't be happier to see that happen. And I see it so often. And what are we all here to be anyhow, except for Anam Cara, soul friends with each other? If you're someone's soul friend, and this is where it can get clunky. You know, you could say, oh, this is my best friend. Look, come on, let's all move out of second grade. Nobody's your best friend. Make yourself your best friend. Make God your best friend. Everyone else should be equal. And that way you can go out in the world and just enjoy the fuck out of your own self. Because everybody you come in contact with is your best friend. And if nobody's there, you're still sitting with your best friend. That's the, you know, that's the good stuff that I've come to a little too late in life. And so just get there, you know, climb on my shoulders, just get there today. Stop. And by what I mean by that is stop gossiping, stop complaining, stop running anyone down. If you have to gossip about someone, just add 2 words, #MeToo, and then get to healing whatever it is you're complaining about. That'll keep your mind open. And that is actually the truth. That person is bringing something to your awareness that you're up for healing, and we're all healing it together. You know, I'm not saying I walk on water when it comes to gossip, but I'm up for healing it completely.
The question, but I want to also thank you for the sacred sanctuary space that we have created here, because the experience of being around authenticity, of presence, has built self-esteem because we get to practice that. My question for you is techniques or suggestions in the world on how to be open-minded in my thoughts if there's no stage to hop onto. In other words, that's where the work I'm working on. And you've demonstrated how we can do that out in the dream. Could you help me with ideas, techniques?
Yeah. Just murder the idea of stage. You are always teaching. You are always teaching. You're teaching your couch. You're teaching your dog. You're teaching the wind. You're always in holy communion with everything. There's no special hour. Although the ego wants to say, well, this is when I really better be a good person because everybody's watching. No, be nice to yourself when you get up in the morning. Be nice to yourself when you brush your teeth. Be super kind to yourself all day long. Make yourself your own audience. If you're waiting for an audience to listen to your message, listen to yourself and make sure your message is love.
That's really good. I appreciate that. That's I wish I had thought of that. No, it's really good. Thank you.
Well, one final thought I have circled here on my paper that you interjected was that thoughts are defenses used as protection.
Yeah.
So for Joni's question, that came to my mind that if I'm having a thought that makes me bring up a defense, to ask myself, what am I protecting myself from?
Yeah.
What am I automatically protecting myself from? And just bring the boogeyman into the light. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good, Sherry, you know, because it makes us look at, first of all, it makes us invoke those principles of trust, of honesty. And so like when you say that to me, I think last night I was at this event and there was a lot going on. It was for amplifying the feminine voice of artists in Chicago. And downstairs was the musical, the Obama the musical. And upstairs was Voice Box, was the show I was producing. And downstairs there was a huge sanctuary. It was packed with people. And I went in to peek in, and the guy who was running it was this minister from California who I knew. And I was like, Reverend James. And he said, yeah, I didn't know you were the producer of the show. Oh, it's amazing. And, and, and I was like, and his room is packed, man. And I'm upstairs, also packed, just like one, half the size of the room. And my thought, this is a judgmental thought. This is a small-minded thought. This is a low-level thought. But my mind goes to, why do men have such a big audience and women don't? Like that is my thought that I need to heal. And I actually haven't healed it yet, so I'm sharing it with you. That this is a thought in my makeup that says, that if you have a masculine body, you're just going to have a greater reach. You're going to get farther. Now, here's a wonderful thing. Right now in our political scene, and without getting political, we're seeing a glass ceiling being broken, whether you're going to vote for her or not. We've never had the opportunity. So something is shifting. And I know that it kind of goes along with what's up for me personally. And I guess that's why that came out in the sermon, was that, or why this man, sent me an email to say, why is your stuff female driven? That's why I created the Maiden Voyage. I wanted a gospel. I wanted a program to speak to my feminine soul. Men could take that program too, if they wanted to. But this is where my healing lives. And I suppose that when we get open-minded, we can also get transparent enough to trust you to tell you that truth. I could spout to you all day long about how I'm walking on water over here, but when I tell you my actual truth, that's when I get authentic. That's when we become friends, as opposed to me being, the sage on the stage. We become the guide on the side of each other that walk each other home. And that's way more helpful, I think, in the consciousness of where we're at right now. We're moving out of the triangle of you get what you get and you don't get upset, and the guy at the top and it just funnels down, you don't question, into the circle where we're all being called to be teachers. That's why each of us came to A Course in Miracles, because we knew I'm a teacher too. I don't want to just receive. I want to have a conversation. I want to extend. I want to have an inhale and an exhale in regards to my spirituality. I'm worthy of that. And for the feminine body, who has been told for millennium that you're not worthy of that, it's very scary. And so we get to face our fears.
Also true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any more questions? By Lou Martin with another song.
Boy, was that religious or what? That was brilliant. So there's a post, men and women, there's a post that I put up yesterday that says, if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a woman to garden, the whole neighborhood gets zucchini.
Thank you, Lou.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you again, everyone. It's always a joy. This is my tune, taking it home. It's called Take Command, and I dedicate it to the women of this world, for sure, for sure. So here we go. Lift me from the past, make me strong and fast, nail my life to the mast, with the winds of love from above that never end. Show me your heart goes, walk by me down the darkest road. Teach me what you know. Let me pull the sword from the stone with my own hand as we take command. It's a life where you change and change again. If you're brave, you may save a drowning friend. Look, there's one already stretching out a hand. Will you take command? Use me as a tool. Make me wise if I'm a fool. Teach me the only rule that I may better serve my fellow man and woman. I know the ground is holy where we stand. Help me take command. Let me live inside your peace, inside your plan. I'm the equal of each woman, child, and man. Love is all that is real, what I am. Love is all in all, for a friend. Love is all in all, beginning and end. Love is all I am, that I am. Help me take command. I need to take command. When will we take command?
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
I'll answer your question. We are taking command now.
Amen. Right on with your right on.
Thank you all for being here this Sunday. We hope to see you next Sunday when we welcome Todd Fink as our guest speaker. And I'm sending you all with best wishes for the best Sunday ever.
Thank
See you
you.
next week.
Bless. Bye.